Imagine joining the Army because the wages were higher, and then being a part of one of the most epic battles.
That's the storyline of a movie our next guest has created, and joining us to tell us more about Coming Home Alive is director Matthew White. You're a filmmaker, Matt. How are you doing? And actually, this is not
Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. This is not your first film. You've done a few.
I've as far as films, I've done one other one, which was a half-an-hour biography of Oscar-nominated filmmaker Carmen Divino. It's called The Quest of Carmen Divino. But this is my first feature-length project.
Mm-hmm. How long is it?
It's an hour and a half.
Yeah. And the storyline is about your grandfather.
Yep, it's about my grandfather's experiences, not only the war sequence of, he was in combat and a prisoner of war. It also basically starts out with introducing him today, and then we go back to his childhood growing up in West Virginia, where he had one small house. They had 8 kids. It's kind of a lot of interesting stories about growing up down there, having to eat pinto beans and cornbread 7 days a week because they didn't have any money. And so basically we kind of, follow him growing up, and then he joins the Army. And, he gets an opportunity to go around the United States after joining the Army, and comes up to Pine Camp. He was stationed here for a little bit, which is now Fort Drum. And he met his wife of 61 years.
That's what it was called, Pine Camp? That's
Pine
history
Camp.
Right there. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Fort Drum used to be called Pine Camp back during World War II. So he went to Adams, New York, which is, nearby, and met his wife of Shirley White of 61 years. And then basically was sent overseas into combat, became a prisoner of war, but did... survive and come home and to reunite with his family.
We are told so often, especially with aging parents and grandparents, capture their stories, write it down, maybe videotape them. You did so much more. That's incredible. Where did you... There's a lot of footage there, obviously, that you didn't take. Where does footage like that come from? Do you have to get releases? How does all that work?
You have to do a lot of research. Basically, I got the video wherever I could, by calling people. You contact companies that have archival film. I got stuff from the Library of Congress, government institutions. It takes really, someone asks me that, I say it takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of nitpicking about what shots you want. So.
Well, not only what shots you want, but George and I can attest to this because we've both produced a little bit here and there. Sometimes you'll have something great that somebody says on camera, and there is nothing to support it. They may have a 4-minute story that is dynamite. You can't edit it down, and there's nothing to support that story. What do you do?
That's probably the hardest part. Is I didn't want to have this. I wanted to keep it fast-paced. I wanted visuals for everything he was talking about. So that's what took the longest time was. But I was able to find, I pretty much, it's a combination of archival footage, stuff that we shot today, family photos, and some live action recreation.
To keep the same look, did you shoot it in black and white?
It's actually, it goes around between color. The archival film, I color toned it depending on the mood of the sequence. Like during the battle and prisoner of war sequence, everything is tinted blue because it's kind of a dramatic time.
It's so inside baseball for us, right? we want to know the process.
Yeah,
they want to know the story.
They want to know the story. How long did you interview your grandfather to get footage of him? And was it hard? Because you know what? You're very close to the story, obviously.
Well, you know what? I grew up hearing his experiences, ever since I was little. And he talked about, the more non-emotional things about his experiences. But as I got older and I would ask him stuff, he would get into some of the more events that, are more harder to talk about.
And he was comfortable doing that? Because most veterans that you talk to, they don't want to go back. They just don't want to.
Well, he won't talk about it just like to anybody, or he won't just start talking about it. In fact, he rarely talks about the stuff that makes him upset. But you know, he said to me after we got done, you know, he said to me that a big part of why he decided that he'd open up his whole life for a film was because I had shown such interest in his life all these years. So ever since I was little and got into production, and I mean a teenager and got into production, I've always wanted to make his story into either a documentary or a live-action movie. So
is this a doc? What is this exactly?
you know, it's almost like slash documentary slash theatrical like film as far as the visuals. I mean, it's his story, and it's told by the man who lived it, but it's a combination of, you know, all kinds of real footage and real family photos, but there is some, you know, live action stuff that was created just for the project. He
narrates throughout the...
Yep, it's basically, I kind of do an introduction to kind of introduce him because, well, I figured, you know, I'm his grandson and I'm kind of telling his story, so I have a little introduction. But then, really, he tells his own story. It's his narrative, which to me, you know, as a film, I think is more intriguing because you're listening to someone express their whole life and tell their life, rather than having a third-person narrator talk about somebody. This is someone talking about their own experiences.
This is premiering next Sunday at the Palace.
Yep.
But you had a screening in New York already?
No, that was actually for the other, for the...
Oh, this is the other. Okay, I'm reading your press release. But you took 2 years to make this?
Yep, I've been working on it 2 years. 2 years ago, I went to my grandfather and talked to him about, you know, if he'd do it, and that got the ball rolling, and it took basically a year to think of how I was going to tell it, collect all the archival images, you know, it was monumentous task to just kind of do pre-production, and then I've been editing since March, constantly. It's my whole life.
Tweaking.
You planning on submitting it to any independent film festivals?
Yep. Besides the premiere at the Palace on October 9th is sort of the local premiere. It's a chance for, you know, people. It's kind of something special to first show it. I'm going to submit it to like maybe the New York Independent Film Festival, and my end result or my end goal is I feel that, you know, I feel it has a chance on getting on HBO or Showtime. And that's kind of what I'm looking for, just because I like how they run everything in its entirety. It's not broken up by commercials.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you, as probably will your family. What a great tribute. Coming Home Alive. It premieres this Sunday, October 9th at 2:30 p.m. at the Palace Theater. And you can visit fourthcoastproductions.com to find out what Matt's up to. And what's your grandfather's name?
It's Rishel White.
Rishel.
Well, people call him Rick.
Rick. All right. Thank you for joining us and
thank you for having me.
Bringing this story to us. Appreciate it.
We also want to mention that if you're questioning what Kaneko Sasaki's work is all about, you get to see the work and talk to her tonight at Lightwork, so stop on by. Now, that is all that we've got for today's show, but join us tomorrow as we talk suffrage with Mimi Kennedy of Dharma and Greg. We're getting positively pink, helping our kids become better characters, and cooking the natural way. A lot of great things you won't want to miss, so we hope to see you. I'm George Kilpatrick. And I'm Linda Lowen. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.